Welcome back to Project Sunday. And before we get started today, I wanted to talk to you about a project that the grandson of one of our viewers has undertaken. He is a young high school student in Canada, and he is researching the effects of the pandemic on Etsy sellers. In other words, did you lose business? Did you find you had to raise your prices? Audie is here with me. Sorry about that. All right, yes, okay, here. There you go. Everybody can see you now. He's looking at the effects of the pandemic on Etsy sellers. If any of you would like to participate in his research, get in touch with me through my Etsy shop, Sumi Gifts. Just message me and I'll put you two in touch. I did an interview with him. I hope some of you will do it as well, because obviously he needs subject matter for his research project. And frankly, I'm very, very impressed with his work. And this is also an opportunity for those of you who may have had problems or opportunities to get your point of view out. So, think about it, because we owe it to the younger generation to help them out. Now, we are doing a lampshade project. So, when we come back, we'll get right into it. So our project today is covering a lampshade. And I know a lot of you have had a great interest in this, and I completely understand that, because getting the right lampshade can be, well, beyond a challenge. Sometimes you look at it and say, this is not possible. I'm not going to get the shade I want. So let me start by showing you the lamp in question. Now, some of you may remember this. I picked this up at Bedford Antiques a few months ago. Let me just see if I can there we go. Keep it in the camera. This is a mid-century ceramic lamp. It's a planter style lamp. You put stuff in it, I guess. As far as I can tell, you would put pocket change in this. It doesn't look like our little spots are big enough for anything else. And it's in a great mid-century design, which is that brick barbecue. And following the Second World War, brick barbecues were a big thing. The generation that came home from the war, home ownership was everything. They moved into the suburbs. They had barbecues. This was the mid-century dream come true. One of the reasons I like this. But this is a mid-century lamp, and getting a mid-century shade for it is, like, for one thing, crazy expensive. Mid-century shades have become really popular, so the prices have gone through the roof. So I decided that the alternative was making my own mid-century shade. And I did, and I'm sharing that process with you. Now, this isn't about simply making a mid-century shade. You could do this with anything. You want an Art Deco shade? Well, that's all well and good, except modern lampshades were not around in the 1920s. They had very different kinds of lampshades. So if you want something for a modern lamp, but you want an Art Deco design, well, you can pay the designer prices that the lamp stores want and not get what you like anyway. Or you can go off and get your own Art Deco fabric and just cover a plain lampshade. And that is what I decided to do. I had, well, let me grab my lamp again. I had some very specific colors I needed. I wanted something that would complement this sort of peachy background tone and pick up the reds and greens and whatever else in this. That was not something I was going to find just anywhere. Certainly not in terms of a pre-made lampshade. And because this is a small lamp, I needed a small shade. So if you're in the same situation, if you want, well, I threw out an Art Deco shade, so we'll stick with that. You want an Art Deco shade, but you want some specific colors. You know, Art Deco colors tend to be black and gold or black and silver. You know, that's what you'll see. But, you know, what if you want green and red? The easiest way to do that is find yourself some fabric, because fabric is available in many, many more patterns. The place I got my fabric from was on eBay. It's a company called Spoonflower. I had never done business with them before, and they had over 500,000 listings. No kidding. I was not going to go through all 500,000 listings. I contented myself with about 200,000. It literally took me 4 or 5 days to go through all of the selections. But, you know, with 500,000 fabric choices, you got to know they had something to satisfy me. They did. So I'm throwing this out as an affordable alternative, and you can get some great results. This is an easy project. Anyone can do it. I mean, a child can do it. It's easy. It is, it's quick. I did my project in about 3 hours, but I had to keep stopping to film. I would say a first-time lampshade recovery project would probably be about 2 hours. I would think your second project would be about an hour. So, quick, very inexpensive. My costs were the new lampshade and the fabric, and that's it. I had the other items I needed. I needed spray adhesive, and I needed fabric glue. Those are things I had on, tailor's chalk. Those are things I had on hand. If I had to throw the cost of all of those items in, it would probably have been another $6 or $7. This is something anybody can do. And in addition to the simple shade I'm showing you, you can take the same techniques and do much fancier shades. So I talked about Art Deco. Well, Art Deco has clean lines and, you know, straight edges, and, you know, Art Deco's easy. What if you wanted to do a Victorian shade? And a lot of people out there have Victorian furniture, beautiful antiques, but when it comes to finding a lamp, have you ever shopped for a Victorian lampshade? They start at about $100 for the small ones. And the big ones, you know, with the damask fabric and the fringes and whatever, $200–300, and that's the low end. You can make your own. You choose your fabric, and where I put simple trim on mine, dig out the beads and the braid and go to town. So, hopefully you will find this informative and money-saving. So, let's get to the project. Well, here is our project. This is a great mid-century modern lamp. A very common sort of design in the mid-century. These outdoor barbecues, which was a huge mid-century thing. A planter-style lamp, again, very common in the era. However, no shade. This is the shade that came with it. And as you can see, it is not only way too big, but it's hopelessly mismatched to the lamp. So, that had to go. And I'm going to show you what I got to replace it. All right, here is our replacement. Target, $10, shade and lamp. Yes, the shade is part of our project, and the rest is just free lamp parts, and you gotta know how much I love free lamp parts. So, this was a very, very good deal because I expected I would have to pay at least $10 for the shade. Now, the shade is covered in fabric, which is nice. That's going to make recovering it very easy. It's not quite drum-shaped. As you can see, notice the lines in the back, and it's not running parallel to these vertical lines. These vertical lines are perpendicular to the base level here, so they're going straight up and down. They are plumb. So it's almost a drum shape, just not quite. It flares out a tiny bit at the bottom, and I measured it to check, and the top is 5.5 inches in diameter. The bottom is 6.5 inches. So almost drum shaped, not quite. And this is going to be our project. We need to turn this shade into something that will match that beautiful mid-century lamp. And this is what we are covering the lamp with. This is called a fat quarter. Now, a fat quarter is 1/4 yard of fabric, but it's not the traditional 1/4 yard. In a traditional 1/4 yard, you roll out the bolt and slice from one end to another, and that's 1/4 yard. So it would be 9 inches wide, and the length would be the length of, well, actually it's the width, would be the width of the bolt. In this case, they throw out a yard of fabric and cut a cross on it, up and down, and what's left is 1/4 yard. So it will be 18 inches by 1/2 the width of the fabric. That means it's a roughly square piece of fabric. And that's fine, because that's pretty much what we need for our project. It's a small shade, and this should cover it nicely. Now, next thing I need to do is look over this pattern and try to figure out what I want to put in the center of the lampshade, what the focal point is going to be. And I like this sort of tiki design. And that does seem to be running right about the middle. There is a crease right here, and that's right here is the middle of the fabric. It's just awfully blue. The lamp has a dark, dark, dark turquoise color in it. And this is a lot more blue than turquoise. The little huts, and we have outrigger sailboats, flowers, and plus all these beautiful mid-century designs. I really want to catch some of these mid-century images, and I would like those to end up in the front too. So I'm going to have to play with it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the fabric around the shade and just stop when I come to something I like. So after playing with the fabric for quite a while, I finally decided on this as the final layout. I have this nice little sort of turquoisey, tealy kind of mid-century starburst over here. Our Sputnik-y thing here, more starbursts. I really wanted a lot of the mid-century elements to be very obvious. I can't say that this outrigger right here was my first choice for the front of the shade. However, given the fact that the lamp is in the shape of an outdoor barbecue, this is an outrigger sailboat, I'm definitely seeing a sort of summery theme, and I don't think it's the worst choice. The reason it's there is because I wanted those other two features to be in the front. Now, one of the reasons it's very important to test fit carefully is because you'll see the potential pitfalls. Now, right here with our little outrigger, the line of the bottom of the boat needs to be perfectly parallel to the line of the bottom of the shade. Now, we need those horizontal lines to match up. Otherwise, it's really going to look odd. So, I'm going to have to take that into consideration as I lay out the shade. Interestingly enough, things like this little starburst here, which has a clear vertical, a clear horizontal line, and even the larger friend over here are not quite so important because they're not exactly front and center the way the outrigger is. With a pattern like this, I was going to have to sacrifice some design elements. The print is large, the shade is small. I'm sorry I will have lost these dark teal or slate blue or whatever color that is, the big tikis, but I think this is probably the best choice because in addition to the very, very mid-century elements that are front and center, I think it also gives me the nicest of the color combinations to match up with the lamp in this particular layout. Yes, the green of the outrigger's sail is not quite a match, but hey, you can't have everything, and I think the rest of the colors are really, really doing well together. Well, here is the fabric, this is the reverse side, laid out on my ironing board because I needed to get the creases out of it. And I went back in and marked the center point. I did that on both sides. Now, notice there is a tiny mark here, just below it, and that came from the fact that when I originally marked my center point, I simply folded the fabric in half. But since one of these edges is much wider than the other, that gave me the center point of the fabric, but not the center point of the printed area. So I had to go back and do it again. This may seem like overkill, but in fact, because this is a small piece and I'm determined to have the pattern line up correctly, I think it's worth the extra effort. So we're still at the ironing board, but I placed a piece of poster board underneath my fabric, and I transferred my marks. They are made with just a piece of tailor's chalk, but quite frankly, you can use anything. I imagine if you sew, you probably do have tailor's chalk running around. If you don't, oh, let's just reach over and grab the tailor's chalk. It comes in a container like this, several colors, very inexpensive, very useful for sewing and craft projects because this easily washes out, and frankly, it's chalk, so if you find you don't like it, give the leftovers to the grandkids and send them out to make hopscotch boards on the sidewalk. but I wanted my marks here on the front side as well. Now, this is the piece that is going to be parallel to the bottom edge of the shade, and it's going to be about 1 inch. So I'm going to make a couple of marks, go down about 1 inch, and draw a line, and that line is going to be that's going to line me up horizontally. And this may seem like serious overkill, but if you're working with a small shade, and I think you'll have to agree this is a small shade, and a busy pattern, and you want a really nice result, a little overkill doesn't hurt. So here's my mark, the blue tailor's chalk, and the next thing I'm going to do is take my shade and roll it across the fabric very carefully, marking the edges. The reason for that is this is not a true drum shade, so the pattern is going to arc a little. It's not going to be, the top and bottom are not going to be straight lines. They're going to be slightly curved because of the rounding of the shade. So, you could make a pattern and do this, but I'm going to do it directly on the fabric. So here's how it works. I will line up the bottom of the shade with my mark, and then take my tailor's chalk, and as I rotate the lampshade, I'm holding it firm against the fabric. I'm just going to follow that outline on both the top and the bottom. So here is the piece after it's been cut. As you can see, I've still got my chalk mark here because I cut about 1/2 inch beyond my chalk mark, because we're going to turn those edges over. But this is what it's going to look like, and as you can see, we've got a curve. It's not a very sharp curve because the shade is almost a drum shape, but we have a curve nevertheless, and that's one of the reasons that we had to be cautious when we were laying out the fabric. If we had just assumed that it was going to be a nice, smooth rectangle of fabric, we would have found ourselves in trouble as the project went along. So here is my fabric. It's already cut out, and remember, my markings are on the other side. And this is how I'm going to affix it to the shade. This is just Elmer's Craft Adhesive. Now, the way you use this is you can do this to make a permanent bond or a temporary bond. For a permanent bond, you apply the adhesive and then use it immediately. Right away you put it in place. For a temporary bond, you spray the adhesive on and let it get tacky for about 3 to 5 minutes, they say. And that's what we're going to do, because that's going to give us the opportunity to reposition the fabric if we need to. And please note, this is an old shower curtain liner that I was planning to throw away. Always use some kind of drop cloth when you're using spray adhesives, otherwise you're going to have a serious mess on your hands. So when I'm done with this, I'll just roll the drop cloth up and toss it out. Okay, my adhesive has set up, it's tacky now, and I'm going to start wrapping it around the shade. And notice how one side of the fabric overlaps the other. I'm going to start laying my fabric out here on this side and smoothing it out this way, so that when I come around to this end, I'm going to be able to put a folded edge right up against this nice neat line, and that way I won't have any excessive bumps over here. It'll be a nice smooth edge. So I'm going to go deal with that now. And remember, when you're rolling your fabric onto the shade, all you have to do is just smooth it gently. If you don't like it, pick it up and start again, because that's why we let the adhesive set up first. So here is our shade covered. And get the back, here's the back seam. And what I did with the back seam is I just folded it over and I fixed it down with this, which is fabric glue. Now there are a lot of ways we can finish off the edges. We could turn them under, either under in front of the shade, or we can wrap it around and glue it right around this little piece of metal and then trim it off. Or what we are going to do with this shade is we're going to cut it right along the edge, and we're going to use a piece of matching trim. You could also use a braid trim, a store-bought trim, but we're going to use a matching trim. And the way we made this is we just took a 1-inch strip of fabric and pressed the two sides in. So see, just like making our own piece of bias tape. And then once our edges are trimmed, we're just going to glue this on. Again, we're doing it with the fabric glue. The spray adhesive is very good for holding things in place temporarily, but for a tougher, more permanent bond, we want a real fabric glue. So we'll be back when we're done. So here is our mid-century lamp with its new, very atomic shade. Now, as you can see, the trim, because it is the same fabric, just blends right in, and I'm very pleased with the way this came out, especially considering the fact that I bought this fabric on the internet, which means I had to trust the monitor colors, and as it turns out, I got lucky. The picture I saw on the internet was not quite as yellowish. It was a little more tan. I think this one goes a lot better. Anyway, I am very pleased with the way the lamp turned out, and now you know how to recover a shade. So, here is my lamp with shade. Completed project. The total cost on this was under $25. It was $10 for the shade, and I believe I paid $12 and some cents for the fabric. That fat quarter of a yard was $11.75, no shipping, but there was tax. And what I got for this was the color range I want, and as you can see, this is good. I got my little atomic starbursts and Sputniks and whatever, and as an added bonus, I got things like the little outrigger, the summer images that would work well with the barbecue lamp. All in all, I was very pleased. However, I do have a word of warning. Let me show you the listing photo from the fabric. Okay, now here's the actual fabric. As you can see, the oranges are sharper, more orangey. The background, which looked rather beige tan to me, in fact, has more yellow and peach tones in it. It's overall, I think it rather looks like a mango, between the dark oranges and then the pale oranges. In my case, that worked out well because of the coloring of the lamp. I would say always be cautious when you're buying fabric online because of this. If you were interested in doing a piece like this, a fat quarter will accommodate a small shade depending on the scale of the pattern. Now, if I had gone for a yard of fabric, I would have been able to set the pattern up any way I wanted. I could have put whatever I pleased in the middle. As it stands, I did get this image toward the center, which is what I wanted. I might have been able to put it, exactly dead. I didn't actually want it dead center, but with a full yard, I would have had the option to move the fabric around a little tiny bit more. That was not a big deal for me, but if you wanted another fabric with a larger design, or if you found a fabric you liked and wanted to eliminate some features in the design, you might want to get a larger piece. Now, as I said, I went to Spoonflower. There are many, many companies selling fabric on eBay. Super easy, but what you have to do is you have to plan on allowing at least a week to choose your fabric, especially if you're really picky. Now, I'm really picky. Yeah, I know you're all so surprised. I wanted what I wanted. That's why I had to make my own shade. And if you're like me, if you want what you want and you know what that is, this is a way to go. The pickier you are, the more time you have to allow to find your fabric. I would say, sure, start off with Spoonflower. Why not? 500,000 different patterns. You're going to find something you like. I even found a streamline modern design in their listings. It was under the Art Deco. By the way, Art Nouveau, William Morris, a streamline modern, they're all in the Art Deco category. Everybody does that. I have no idea how it is that people cannot tell the difference between Art Nouveau and Art Deco, but honestly, they can't. So keep in mind your keywords need to take that into account when you go fabric shopping. And I also found some terrific steampunk patterns too. That's something I could have some fun with, I'm sure. And that's unusual, by the way. Steampunk is not mainstream yet. Maybe it never will be, I don't know. Every now and then I feel like I sort of slipped off the rails somewhere along the line. Great steampunk designs, the Art Deco designs, some of them were just gorgeous, just beautiful, beautiful designs. The streamline modern, I'm thinking of getting a couple of yards of that. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but, hey, modern. I would wholeheartedly recommend this because in my case, this little lampshade, when the smoke cleared, was under $25, plus I got the lamp too. And that was that brass lamp I showed you. That's free lamp parts, which is great. $25, and I got exactly what I wanted. So I would say, yeah, you want to throw a little color into a room. You want to switch the style up a little. If you have a contemporary room and you want to give it a little Art Deco edge, a lampshade will do that. If you don't like the stuff you've seen in stores, make it yourself. So, if you're interested in this, this was like basic. It was roughly a drum shape on the shade, simple because it's mid-century modern, so those are simple, clean lines. If you want to see something fancier, if you want to see a Victorian shade, something in a damask with the frills and the gewgaws, we can do that too. Projects like that only take a very small amount of additional time because the shade wrapping is essentially the same, unless you want to do something intricate like throw pleats in it. And by the way, that doesn't take very much longer. But for like a Victorian shade, most of your time is going to be spent, attaching the little beaded fringes and the ruffles and the whatever. But the actual shade recovery process is going to be the same pretty much no matter what kind of shade you use. You can do this for any style of lampshade, even the ones with the big seams going up and down the sides, and you can do that without a machine. You can glue the fabric right on to the existing fabric shade and create your own seams, only you're doing it with glue instead of a sewing machine. So easy, and if you want to see something more extensive, let me know. Also, remember, if you want to participate in that Etsy survey. Oh, and by the way, I did ask the young man if he would give me a copy of his paper when he's done. And I will share that with you because we've got a lot of Etsy sellers out there and this may be of interest. So if you want to participate, remember, get in touch with me through my Etsy shop. I will hook you up. And it won't take much of your time. Probably a half an hour to do the interview, unless you're talkative, in which case it might go a little longer. Mine did. All right. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We are going to slide out today with a repeat of our little slideshow from Lisa's granddaughters. All right. We'll see y'all next time.